Hello, today I'm going to talk about the impact that Nelson Mandela had during his lifetime on fighting apartheid that was carried out by the government in South Africa and how it affected South African communities. First of all, we need to know what apartheid is. Apartheid came from the word apartness or separateness. It was a system of racial segregation that governed South Africa for almost 50 years. The system in South Africa aimed to protect the white minorities' power over the black majorities in every aspect of life. This ideology started way before they officially created a law for apartheid in 1948 by the National Party. There were a total of 148 apartheid laws to ensure the domination of white race. The Act of Prohibition of Mixed Marriage in 1949 was one of the first apartheid law that was passed, strengthening the separation of different race. This law prohibited marriage and sexual intercourse between Europeans and non-Europeans. They also passed the Population Registration Act. This law categorized every South Africans by race. The major apartheid law was the Group Areas Act in 1950. This law prohibited racial groups to live out of the designated areas to reserve lands for white minorities. Now we know how apartheid greatly affected the black population in South Africa. Let's talk about someone who destroyed apartheid and united South Africa. His name is Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918. He was the first in his family that received a formal education. Later, he entered University of Fort Hare, which was an elite university for South Africans. He was sent home due to the incident of him boycotting the school policy. In 1941, Nelson Mandela faced the reality of racial segregation in South Africa when he entered the city. He then began attending meetings of the African National Congress, which is an organization that aimed to establish a democratic government. Mandela officially joined ANC, which is the African National Congress, in 1944. ANC used non-violent methods such as boycotting, civil disobedience to try to achieve full citizenship for all South Africans. In 1952, ANC created a campaign called the Defiance of Unjust Laws, which Mandela helped lead. They protested against the government's policy. Mandela received a suspension prison sentence that banned from public meeting for 6 months due to the incident, but he didn't stop and went underground to create a new plan for ANC. In 1956, he was arrested with other 156 political activists charged with treason. Everyone was freed by 1961. The turning point was in 1960. 69 people were shot dead in Chartwell during the protest that was led by black protesters. This is when Mandela changed his perspective of the approach from passive to radical. It was the only way to beat the government. Nelson became the leader of the new armed wing of the ANC, which was called MK. This carried out a sabotage campaign towards the government under Mandela's lead. He was trained with Algerian National Liberation from outside the country, but was arrested not so long after his return in August 5, 1962, sentenced to 5 years in prison. The ANC hideout in Rivonia was raided the following July. They were arrested for treason and violent conspiracy. Mandela and 7 others tried to escape, but was sentenced to life imprisonment instead. This attracted international attention. Mandela was sent to Robben Island prison, which he spent 18 of his 27 years in jail. In 1980, the campaign Free Nelson Mandela, started by Oliver Tambo, he gained massive attention. This increased the international outcry against the South African racist regime, so the government freed Mandela due to the pressure, but in exchange for political compromises. Mandela rejected the offer and was moved to Pollsmoor prison in 1982. South Africa became more isolated. Businesses and banks refused to do business with them. That is when the change began. In 1990, the South African government, which had lowered the aspect of apartheid legislation, finally agreed to open negotiations, and Nelson Mandela was released on February 11, 1990. It was led by Nelson Mandela himself. On December 1993, Mandela won the Nobel Peace Prize. Then he became the first black president on April 26, 1994, leading the ANC by the majority vote. He established a government that is based on majority rules, with a strong central government. He also prohibited the discrimination against people and improved the relationship between race. After his retirement, he established many organizations related to peace and social justice. Nelson Mandela greatly impacted South Africa. He helped lead countless protests and sabotaged the government because he was fighting for black population's freedom. He went in jail multiple times, in total of 27 years. He was the main reason that apartheid stopped. He was the leader of the main organization that helped fight apartheid. He didn't give up no matter what happened to him. Most importantly, he was the one who attracted people from all over the world to acknowledge the problem in his country, which was the reason why apartheid stopped. If Nelson Mandela didn't exist and didn't stand up and fight to get rid of the system, black population in South Africa would still be oppressed. They would have no basic rights. There will be no opportunity for the black population to be successful because of the laws that are limiting them, and also because of the lower quality education. Overall, it wouldn't be good for black population. The community in South Africa would be even more separated and filled with hatred towards each other, which won't help but only damage the society socially and economically. Due to the fact that no one is helping each other, also, no other country would want to do business with a country that has a racist government like what just happened. Not only that, he helped strengthen the bonds between race. This helped the community to get along and lower the hatred between races, which united the community in South Africa. This would bring a variety of benefits socially and economically because the communities are striving to make South Africa better with each other's aid. The other countries would also support the change, bringing all kinds of benefits towards the country also. This is the impact of Nelson Mandela himself. He was the one that reshaped South Africa to the South Africa that we know of today.